Today we're going to compare 6 of the most popular Micro 9 handguns on the market today. These 6 guns more or less all hold the same number of rounds in a similar sized package. The Sig P365XL, the Canik Mete MC9, the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield Plus, the Glock 43X, the Springfield Hellcat, and the Taurus G3c. These are all 9mm handguns. All of these firearms have been cleared prior to this video. Just a couple of quick observations right off the bat. I'm going to tell you right now which one of these guns is the heaviest and which one is the lightest. The heaviest gun in this lot is going to be the Taurus G3c, and the lightest gun is going to be the Springfield Hellcat. As far as which one has the longest slide, that honor is going to go to the P365XL, which is a little longer than the standard P365, so there is a smaller version of this. And the shortest slide is the Springfield Hellcat. As far as height as well, the Hellcat also wins as far as being the smallest from top to bottom. The largest is going to be the Glock, top to bottom. It's going to be a ½ inch longer than the Hellcat, but most of these other guns are right around the same size. Alright, that was just a few spoilers there, so let's go ahead and do some comparisons. Alright, so let's start with the most expensive of the lot here. This is the Sig P365XL, and this one does have the slide milled out for an optic. So this one is going to run about $650. You can get it a little cheaper without the cutout in the top here, probably about $620. The M&P Shield Plus I've seen as low as $400. I don't think that includes the optic cutout slide. This one was probably more like $450, but it's about a $400 to $450 gun. The Canik Mete MC9, this one does come with a cutout as well. This one is actually runs only about $400, and it does come with a few accessories. Comes with a cheap inside the waistband holster, some cleaning tools. This is a pretty good gun for $400. The Springfield Hellcat, this one is going to go for about $520. I've seen them a little bit less, a little bit more. Let's go to the Glock. Glock 43 right now you can get for about $450. This one does not have the MOS or the slide cut out for the optic. For that you're going to pay a little bit more. I've seen them for about $485 with the cutout on the top here, so that's not bad. And then this is the least expensive gun in the lot. But don't let that fool you. I believe that for the money, this is a very good firearm. This one goes for about $260. I've seen them a little bit less, a little bit more. It does not have the optic cut out on the top on this model, but for the price, you can't really go wrong with the Taurus. Okay, now we're going to weigh each of these guns completely unloaded with no magazine in the firearm. Taurus G3c, 19.4 ounces. Canik MC9, 18.9 ounces. Glock 43X, 16.3 ounces. Springfield Hellcat comes in at 15.9 ounces. Shield Plus at 17 ounces. Sig P365XL, 18 ounces. Alright, now let's weigh them with a fully loaded 12-round magazine in the gun. Alright, in the Taurus G3c, 27.1 ounces. The Canik, fully loaded, 26.5 ounces. The Glock 43X. Now this only holds 10 rounds, so to be fair, we're going to add 2 more rounds just for apples to apples. So it comes in at 23.6 ounces. The Hellcat, I needed to put a 13-round magazine in there because the only other magazine is an 11-round. So we have 12 rounds in this magazine, so it comes in at 23.5 ounces. The M&P Shield Plus with 12 rounds is 24.7 ounces. Alright, and the Sig Sauer, 25.3 ounces. So now we're going to get a couple of measurements as far as overall length goes. And most of them are pretty close. Let's see what we have here. So the Taurus, just a little bit over 6 inches. Front to back. Your Glock 43X with this tang here, you're about 6¼ inches. And your Canik MC9, just over 6 inches, just by a hair. The Shield Plus, just at 6 inches. The Sig P365XL, right around 6½ inches long. That's with this tang on the back here. Without that, it's about 6¼ Springfield Hellcat, that's right about 6 inches. So without that tang, it looks a little shorter. Just the slide, it's closer to 5¾ All right, now we're going to measure the overall height. And what I'm going to do here, the way I personally would carry these is Even though this comes with a flush mount base plate that I could put on here, which would take off this little tang here, I need that. I would not carry this without that because I need to have all of my fingers on the gun. So I'm going to choose a magazine that allows me to get all of my grip onto this gun before I measure it. All right, so let's start with the Canik. We're going to go right from the top of the sights down to the bottom, so that's about 4.5 inches. The Taurus comes in just a little bit under 5 inches top to bottom. The grip on the Glock with a flush mount magazine, even without the magazine, I can get all my fingers on here. So that is one thing I do like about the Glock. It's got a nice big old grip on there. So we're going to use the flushest magazine that I have. This one comes in just at about 5 inches. The Shield Plus, I'm going to use the 13 round magazine. And here, because that's going to give me a little more grip real estate here. And this one's just a hair under 5 inches. And with the Sig, we're going to do the same. The flush mount magazine allows me to get all of my fingers on here as well. So the Sig's got a nice size grip, the Sig XL. Wow, that is pretty short. Just a little over 4.5 with the flush mount magazine. Sig has done a really good job at fitting a crap load of rounds into a very small handle. That's good and bad. I'll talk about some of the problems I've had with the Sig 12 round magazines, but they do work. So this is probably going to be the easiest to conceal as far as the grip goes. The Springfield Hellcat, we are going to measure it using the 11 round magazine with the extra pinky extension here. And this comes in at about 4 3/4 inches. Okay, now I just wanted to compare the actual barrel length in each of these guns. I put them in order of longest to shortest. So the longest barrel is actually the P365XL. So the Glock 43 is next, then the Taurus. The Canik comes in right around the middle. The Hellcat and the Shield Plus are almost exactly the same length, but they are definitely the shortest barrels of the bunch. I'm going to take a quick measurement of the actual grip circumference. So those of you with bigger hands can see which of these grips is actually the biggest all the way around, which is really what's going to make a difference for your fingers if you have small fingers or large fingers. But before I do that, I just want to mention that these three here, the Glock, the Sig, and the Canik, are the only ones that you can do anything about the grip size. So for the Glock, I have seen some aftermarket back straps that you can add on here to increase the size of the grip a little bit. Well, I'll put links down in the description below. As far as I can tell, Glock does not make any kind of backstrap for the 43X. The P365XL, the only way that you can change the grip size is to actually buy a grip module. And a grip module is just this lower part here, the polymer part, because you can actually take out the fire control module, take the slide off, and put the slide and the fire control module into a new grip module. And I do have a video showing how that does come apart if you want to look at that. And the Canik MC9 comes with 3 different back straps, and I'll mention that in a few minutes here, but you can actually change the grip size with stuff that comes right with the gun. So we're gonna see if we can do this here, see how this measures up. So let's start with the Sig. The Sig is about 5 inches in circumference. The Shield Plus, this is not an exact science because these grips are going to vary a little bit depending on whether you're at the top or the bottom, so I'm going to try to get kind of in the middle. Okay, this one is a little bit more than 5 inches. I'd say that's close to 5 1/4. The Canik, we're definitely close to 5 1/4 on this one. However, the Canik is the only one of these guns that actually comes with 3 different size back straps. So I actually have the medium one on here right now. So that measurement that we took, you can go a little bit more or a little bit less depending on which back strap you put on here. That's a big plus for me for a gun to have adjustable back straps so you can really get the grip the size that's most comfortable for you. Let's go with the Taurus. This is a little more than 5 1/4. So this is one of the bigger ones here. The Hellcat grip comes in about 5 1/8, just over 5, so that's not too bad. The Glock grip is actually close to 5. The Glock might be the smallest grip of all of them. It's right around 5 inches around. Alright, next let's see which of these guns can be modified for a left-handed shooter. Which guns are ambidextrous? All of these guns, you can change the mag release to the other side. And I have videos for each one of these guns on how to do that. I'll put links in the description below. The Canik being the most difficult one to do that, but it is possible to do. Now, as far as the slide stop being ambidextrous, the Canik is the only one that has the slide stop on both sides. Every one of these other guns only has a slide stop on the one side. As you can see, for a right-handed shooter. So once again, the Canik is the only gun that has a slide stop and is fully ambidextrous. Okay, now I'm going to compare the accessory rails that come on each of these guns. We can see the Glock does not have an accessory rail. As far as a white light, they do make lights that connect to the trigger guard, so it's not out of the question, but it does not have an accessory rail. The M&P Shield also does not have an accessory rail. Same thing applies to this. There may be lights that connect up here that are made specifically for this gun, but it does not have an accessory rail. The two guns that actually have Picatinny rails are the Canik MC9. It has a legit, although short, Picatinny rail, and the Taurus G3 actually has a Picatinny rail. Now, it's about the same size. It only has one notch in the bottom, but it's got a very short rail, as does the Canik. This Hellcat has kind of almost a Picatinny rail. It's a little shallower, and I have seen that some of the standard white lights will not fit on here. So you will need to find a light that is specifically designed to fit the Hellcat. And there are some, I'll put some in the links below. Amazon carries a few lights that look great on this gun and fit it just right. Same thing goes for the P365, the Sig. This is not a Picatinny rail right here. There are a lot of lights that fit this. I'll put some links down in the description as well. The rail is a lot smaller than your standard Picatinny rail is, but there's plenty of room on here for a white light. All right, so now I just want to compare the optic cutout of the 4 guns of the 6 that do take an optic. And all of these optic covers come off with a Torx number 10, except for the Shield Plus. That one uses a Torx number 8. And the Canik, this cover is so tight on the Canik that you will need to remove the slide, flip it over, and use a pin punch to tap out the cover. All of these guns take an optic with an RMSC footprint, but there are some slight differences. One very popular optic that will fit all of these guns, some with and some without an adapter plate, is the Holosun K series. And I'll leave a link in the description below for the Holosun products so you can see what I'm talking about. The Canik, these are the optic where the optic screws on, these 2 screw holes here. These are the holes that were needed to tap the cover out. So this is a pretty standard footprint for an RMSC as far as the size goes and the hole cutouts go. The P365XL is basically the same. It's all smooth surface except for where the screws are, and they're the same footprint right here. When you get to the Shield, the screw holes are in the same place. The size is for an RMSC, but it has these 4 pins in the corners. So you will need to make sure the optic you get allows for those either on its own or with an adapter plate, because that's a little bit different. And then the Hellcat is similar. It's got the 4, they're not quite the same in shape, but it's got 4 bosses or 4 pins that stick up, and the screws that you need to be shorter for this, because if you look down in there, there's a spring very close in there, so if your screws are too long, you're going to have a problem. But they all take an RMSC footprint. All right, so the next thing we're going to compare is the trigger. So we're going to kind of get a feel for the trigger and what the trigger reset feels like. So you will notice that all of these guns, except for the Sig, has the trigger safety on the face of the trigger. The trigger will not go back unless this is pressed as well. Let's work with the Sig. First, we're going to verify that it's unloaded, of course, and we're going to, now that I racked the slide, now the trigger is ready to go. So let's go ahead, and there's a little bit of play before you feel some tension, and then the trigger actuates pretty quickly. And then as far as reset, let's see, the reset is quite short. So this Sig has a very good tight trigger. Next, let's go with the Glock. So we're going to check to make sure it's unloaded. Let's feel here, take a look at how the trigger works on this one. We start to move it. It does not have very much play in it at all before it starts to actuate. And then right here, it's a heavier trigger pull, it feels to me, than the P365, but not bad at all. Let's see what the reset feels like. The reset's pretty short as well. So Glocks tend to have kind of the same trigger on all Glock models, so this is not bad. This is pretty standard Glock type trigger. Pretty nice and tight. I kind of like that. Shield Plus. Check for no ammo. Alright, so now let's press the trigger safety. A little bit of play, actually a fair amount of play right there. Not a big deal, but there's a fair amount of play before you feel any tension. And then, not bad, not bad. Reset is very short. Reset's very short on this gun. That's a real good trigger. It's not very heavy at all. It's a fairly light trigger, it feels like to me. Let's go to the Springfield Hellcat. Check it for ammo. Press the trigger safety. Start moving backward. Not much play at all. I don't know. A little bit of play in there, similar to the Shield Plus, maybe a little more play. And then once you get here, I'd say that's a heavier trigger pull than the Shield Plus. Probably one of the heaviest ones. Not, again, not terribly so. And then let's check the reset. Not bad. It's not much different. Not much different than the others. A little bit longer than the Shield, but not terribly so at all. I think they all have pretty similar triggers. All right, so let's go with the Canik now. Verify unloaded. All right, and we'll press the trigger. The trigger safety is a little bit more integrated on this one. It's less of a separate lever. It still is. I like the way it kind of fits in there. It's not real prominent of a safety. Okay, so once you press that, little bit of play. Little play there before we feel any tension. Ooh, that's a fairly easy trigger. That's probably one of the lightest triggers so far. Very short reset. Wow, that hardly moved. Whoa, yeah, that's definitely the shortest reset of any of the guns, I would say, by a pretty good margin. And probably one of the lighter triggers as well. I would say that's probably one of the better feeling triggers out of this group here. Now the Taurus is a little different because the Taurus G3c has what they call second strike capability. And all that means is every time you pull this trigger, it's going to pull the striker back and release it. The way this works is going to be like this. Let's first check that there's no ammo in here. All right, on your first trigger pull, you're going to get the trigger safety back. And yeah, there's actually a pretty long trigger pull here before you feel any tension. See how long that is? That's pretty long. I feel a little tension right here. It's a fairly stiff trigger pull right there. I don't have to rack the slide to get a reset here. The reset's pretty far forward, and then the second attempt, again, the striker falls. The idea of this is if you have a bad round or you just had a light primer strike for whatever reason, you can press the trigger again. You don't have to rack the slide. You don't have to do a tap rack. You just press the trigger again and it's going to drop the firing pin or striker on the round one more time to see if it'll fire the second time. So that's that's rare, but that's the idea behind that. The trigger pull does change if you press the trigger and it actually fires and your slide cycles. Now you've got a shorter reset for your second shot, and your follow-up shots are now a much shorter reset, much nicer trigger pull. That's how this works. First trigger press is much different than the follow-up shots, but the follow-up shots feel pretty good with this. Now I want to talk about chamber-loaded indicators. So the Canik Mete MC9 is the only gun out of these 6 that has an actual, what I consider to be a real chamber-loaded indicator, and that is this device at the top here. Now I'm going to take a dummy round and we're going to show you how this works. So right now there is no round in the chamber, and this metal piece is flush with the top. So if we load a round into the chamber, a dummy round in there, you can tell that there's a round in there because this little piece of metal is raised just a little bit. If you're in the dark, you're not sure if there's a round in the chamber, you can feel that very easily, that is raised and there's a round in the chamber. Now there's nothing better than checking yourself, but that is the intention of this chamber loaded indicator. Each of the other guns has a kind of like a peephole in the top here. So if you look down in that hole right now, it's dark. So if we load a round in there, you can see, in this case red, but in most cases it's going to be brass when you have a real round in there. If you look down in there, you can see that there's a round in the chamber. However, in the dark or even slightly low light, you're not going to see anything. So that's better than nothing, but it's not as good as an actual chamber loaded indicator. The other thing on some of these guns, because they have an external extractor, which most of them do, there's a subtle difference in the feel of this between a loaded chamber and unloaded chamber. This will be slightly more depressed when the round is not in there. However, you're barely going to be able to tell the difference there. And that little peephole is a little bit different, but it's similar on all of these other guns. The Shield Plus has a little bit bigger peephole. You can see if there's a round down in there. Again, not so much in the dark. The Taurus has a little peephole there. The Hellcat has a peephole, so you can see if there's a round in the chamber. The only one that really does not is the Glock. You can tell by the extractor sometimes. So if there's no round in the chamber, that extractor is flush, especially this front part right here. It's flush with the sides. So we put a round in there, and that extractor is slightly elevated. Again, that's not much difference. If you look on the side here, you can kind of peek in there and see, but it's not on the top. You can see a little bit of red in there, but again, it's probably the worst one as far as knowing if there's a round actually in the chamber. All right, now I'm going to talk about the sights that are included with each of these guns. So first, let's start with the, well, let's just say crappy ones. The Glock comes with standard Glock plastic sights. Most people say the first thing you want to do with a Glock is upgrade the sights. And there are lots of aftermarket sights to upgrade, and they're not very expensive at all. And they can be adjusted, just pushed out fairly easily. This comes out with a bolt from underneath, so the front sight is fixed, the rear one is adjustable on a Glock. Now as far as night sights, these look nice and bright in the day. These are actually pretty good sights in the day. You can pick those up pretty good and get a good sight picture pretty fast on those, but low light and at night, you can't see these at all. I just took these in the closet. You can't see anything with those sights. So the Taurus has a white dot front sight and blacked out rear sights, which again, during the day or at the shooting range, this is easy to get a sight picture. This is not bad at all. And these are blacked out, so there's no glare, that kind of thing. And only the rear sight is adjustable, and that can be tapped, moved slightly either way. The front sight is screwed in from a little screw underneath, just like the Glock, so that is not adjustable. However, there are lots of aftermarket upgrades that are not very expensive for this gun as well, and I'll put links to those down in the description. And now let's go with the Canik. The Canik has a similar setup. It's got a white dot front and blacked out rear sights. The Canik is one of the ones that is optic ready, so it's really kind of designed for buying an optic. Buy an optic and put it on here, then the built-in sights are secondary, but lots of upgraded sights available. Also, both of the sights on the Canik, the rear and the front, are adjustable left or right, so if your point of aim is off, you can adjust those. These three guns all have much better sights on them. However, they all also take an optic. So let's start with the Shield Plus. The Shield Plus comes with fiber optic sights, and these are night sights. I took these in the closet with no light at all, and I could see these very, very well. This appears red right now, but in the dark that appears green, and it matches the rear to the fiber optic sight. So this one does well in the dark. The rear sight is not adjustable. It just sits in there and it's held in with a screw. The front sight can be tapped left or right to dial it in. Next, we're going to look at the Hellcat. Again, it's optic ready, but it comes with what appears to be really cool sights here. They call this the Tritium U-Dot sight. So the front sight is actually a night sight. It's tritium, and you can actually see this very, very well in the dark. However, you can't see this U at all in the dark. So it's going to be okay if you're in really close quarters. If you need to use it in the dark, you just find the front sight and fire away, I guess. But you can't really line it up with the back because you can't see the back in the dark. Just letting you know that. So again, get some upgrades. It looks like the rear and the front can both be adjusted left or right. All right, last but certainly not least is the Sig XL. And I know it doesn't have an L on here, but this is actually an XL. This gun, although it's optic ready, comes with night sights. These are called the X-Ray 3 night sights, and these are very noticeable in the complete darkness. It's 3 green dots that you would see in the dark. It's very good night sights, or day/night sights, both adjustable, and again, you can get upgrades, although honestly, you don't really need to upgrade these. If you don't like these, get an optic and put it on there, then you'll have nice night sights and an optic on there that you can use either one. Let's get the 3 that you can see in the dark, and I'm going to turn the lights down a bit and we'll see what we can see here. First, I'm going to show you the Springfield Hellcat in low light. In low light, you can see that U, the white U, still pretty well if there's some light in the room. And the front, of course, glows pretty well. But as soon as you go to no light, or almost no light, that U pretty much disappears. The Sig P365, you can see in low light, you've still got those 3 green dots show up very, very well. Even when you pretty much remove all the light, you can still see those 3 dots right there. All right, now let's go to the M&P Shield Plus. You can see those 3 dots in the low light. And then when you go to almost no light, you can still see them very, very well. And next to the Sig, I would say the Shield is a bit brighter. Those dots look bigger to me, easier to see. I say the Shield Plus wins for night sights, hands down. All right, now I just want to talk about a couple of issues that I had with 2 of these guns. So all the other guns I haven't had any issues to speak of with so far. The biggest issue I had with the P365, this is a fantastic little gun. Now, Sig did a really great job of creating a gun that holds a lot of rounds for its size. Probably the best job of anyone. However, this is a 12-round magazine. When I got this brand new out of the box, and there were 2 of these in there, and they both behave the exact same way, I was not able to load more than about 5 rounds using my hands into this magazine. It was so stiff and hard to use. I don't know if it was the spring, the metal they use, or what, and a lot of you are probably thinking, well, come on, 4 rounds, that's ridiculous, and that's what I thought. But it is fairly common. I do have a video on that I'll link to up in the corner here. It's going to take some doing, so you're probably only going to get 10 rounds realistically in here, even with a loader at first, but I have a recommended loader in my video, a Speed Bees loader. So in order to get all the rounds in, I found that a Speed Bees loader was perfect. It's designed actually for this very gun, and this is a very big seller because of the problem that they have here. Also, you can get a uplula. An uplula works well on a lot of different brands of magazines, so it works on more than just the Sig. So I'll put links in the description for those items as well. Other than that, this has been a fantastic firearm. The Canik also, this has so many features. This is a very loaded gun for a very fair price, as you will see. However, there was an issue with this firearm, and the issue was around the magazine as well. And what was happening was, when the magazine was empty and I hit the magazine release button, the magazine would not fall out. So I did figure out a way to fix that. It's not hard to do. It involves a hair dryer and some painter's tape, believe it or not. I'll put a link up here, and I'll put a link in the description for that video. It's not a big deal. It was easy to fix, and you could also send it back to Canik if your gun happens to have that issue as well. So other than that, I've had all these guns to the range. They're all fun to shoot. They all shoot very, very well. I would recommend any of these firearms. Taurus being the least expensive, I would not shy away from this. Taurus makes quality stuff stuff. They just, it is a little heavier. It's pretty bare bones, but it was well under $300, and it's a very fine shooting firearm, and it feels like quality. It doesn't feel cheap. All these other firearms are good. This one is one of the most popular firearms out there right now. It's a little more expensive. There are several other versions of it as well. Glock. It's a Glock. It's going to work. It shoots great. M&P Shield Plus. If you look at a lot of the reviews out on the internet, you'll see that a lot of guys kind of really prefer this gun for all the things that it has. It shoots good for its size, and it holds a lot of rounds. It's got some different magazines, so it's pretty versatile. Easy to replace sights, and you can put an optic on it. So all these guns are great guns. I just wanted to compare a few of the features. There might be things that you like about one gun and not another. If you found this video helpful and informative, please hit like below. Please check out the description for different accessories that are available for all these fine firearms. And thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe.